Cool, great. I am Latasha Roland. I teach fifth grade middle school math and science this year in Kansas City, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, but I teach in Raytown. Missouri is a suburb outside of Kansas City. And I'm just going to talk about how I use Edulastic in my classroom. I've been using it for about ever since my first year here. This is my fourth year at this school. And when my principal mentioned it to me, it was something that I immediately fell in love with. So I'm going to take my screen and go ahead and share my slides. Can everybody see them? Are they popping up?
Yep, we can see.
All right, cool. So just as a key, like I typically have 3 types of assessments that I give. Here at my school, I do a benchmark assessment that either previews the content I haven't taught or the stuff I've taught throughout the year. And then I do a unit assessment, which assesses obviously the unit. And then my mini mastering quizzes are just spot checks throughout the unit. But the main goal of how I use Edulastic in my classroom is basically to create and administer balanced assessments. A few years back, my principal came to us and said, we are struggling on certain particular types of questions on our state assessments. So Edulastic provided me that great tool where I can provide my students with enough at-bats to try to get comfortable with these different types of questions, as well as it gives me an idea of how to give accurate data, pinpoint data on where I need to drive my instruction on teaching these type of questions, but importantly, teaching the content as well. So the cool feature that I want to say they added last year to Edulastic is this little infographic that you see to the side when you're building your assessments. I love this feature. The first year I used it, we did not have it, but it lets me know just a breakdown of how many question types and how many standards. So if you look below where it says 20 questions, it lets me know what type of standards I'm putting on my quiz or test so that I'm not overloading the assessment with a particular type of question or test, question type by standard. I couldn't get a full screen, so this is what also is below as you scroll down that bar. This lets you know the actual question type. So about 3 years ago, like I said, when we were getting our state assessment data back, we were scoring 20% less on accuracy on the 2 question types that the blue arrows are showing. Particularly, our kids had a struggle with drag and drop and multiple select. I initially came to Missouri from North Carolina. At that time, we weren't using assessments on the computer. We were still doing pencil, paper, and Scantrons. So all I was used to was multiple choice. So when I came to Missouri, I just had no clue what these questions looked like. I didn't know what the questions they were requiring my students to do. So when I was introduced to Edulastic, it provided me with that essential thing that I needed to see. So this is a typical multiple select question. And it's basically at the end of the question, it says select all answers that apply. Our kids will only select one, or they will see one of 2, but 9 times out of 10 is 2 to 3 answers that are accurate within that question. And that's where our kids really begin to struggle. So it's not that they didn't understand the concept, they just wasn't particularly well-versed on how to attack this type of question. And then the next question is a drag and drop. Technology was a struggle bus for these kids because it was the first time they were using computers to take an assessment. So, and 9 times out of 10, prior to me coming here, most times they only took assessments in math on the computer when it came to the state assessment. So I use Edulastic heavily, and I still use it heavily so that they can get repetitive practice with a computer-based test. And so this teaching them how to drag and drop a simple number. It looks, in my mind, it looks very easy in theory, but for a 10-year-old, sometimes it's not as explanatory as it seems. So this is just an example of a drag and drop question. And so last year, I started to look at some data. So last year, as I'm preparing for this, my students with the drag and drop, when their first benchmark, first out the gate in August, they were at 42% accuracy. By the Unit 3 exam, halfway through the year, and at that point, we only have about 4 units. I'm having kids now understanding how to attack that question at 93% accuracy. So over time, multiple at-bats, quizzes, tests, benchmarks they're getting multiple touch points with this type of a question, regardless of the content I'm teaching. But because they're having multiple at bats, they're that much more comfortable with that assessment type question, and they're more apt to attack it when it comes to the state assessment. So this year, last year, so we did multiple select last year as well at the beginning of the benchmark. This is one we typically struggle with more. We're at 39% accuracy. By the fourth exam, which is the fourth unit and my final unit within the year, my students were at 77% last year. And so it's one of those things where I'm constantly trying to get them more reps with these types of questions. I actually try to do an equilibrium of half my test multiple choice and the other half is scattered between multiple select, drag and drop, text entry, numeric, something where, because these are all the types that they'll face on our state assessment. And so this year, right now, after our first benchmark, we're only into unit 2, but I only have data from unit 1. Our students after the benchmark are halfway, like on drag and drop, they've increased their percentage accuracy by doubling it, more than doubling it. So they're getting a little bit more comfortable after 3 quizzes and then leading up to the unit exam. And then right now, I only have 1 because I did not put 1 on the benchmark. So right now, as you can see, we're still really struggling. And after this is me being here on year 4. But this is a reality of I'm one of the few teachers who utilizes this system heavily within the building. People use it for exit tickets, but I utilize it heavily for assessments solely. So every year I'm having to reorient kids to these type of assessment types.